All right, I have 3:30. I see Andrea's online. I know Diane is in person at Des Moines Waterworks. I don't see Sue. Is Sue online yet? We'll give Sue a minute. I will note that Joel is not here because he's at the hospital with his wife, and hopefully that means the baby is coming.
Yay. And Graham, I do see Sue on here.
Oh, is she on there? Sue, can you hear us? I'll make sure you're hooked into audio before we start.
Sure can. I've been able to hear you. I just had not unmuted. Here I am.
That's all right. I didn't see you. All right. So, Michelle, I think we have a roll call, right? Do you want to take one just to make sure?
Yes, sir. Andrea Bolton,
Yes, here.
Sue Hubbard,
Here.
Graham Gillette,
Here.
Diane Munns. Here. Thank
All
you.
right. So that gets us a quorum. This is, for the record, the December 21st, 2021 board meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. We have first on our agenda, consent agenda, which includes minutes of the November 23rd, 2021 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the minutes of the December 7th, 2021 Planning Committee meeting, and the minutes of the December 14th, 2021 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, financial statements, a list of payments for November of 2021, summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $20,000, and setting of our next meeting date, January 25th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And I have a second. Ted or board, do you have anything to add or questions?
Nothing to pull out, Graham, unless there are questions.
All right. Anyone? With that being said, I'll have Michelle record a vote on the consent agenda.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Munns. Yes. Thank you.
Great. So we'll move into the public comment period. And what I'll do is, I know there are some people that want to speak on the Central Iowa Waterworks founding resolution. Let's do that separately. I'll give you an opportunity if you're here to speak on item A. We'll do that during the item. But during this period, is there anyone here from the public that would wish to address the board on another item, whether it's on the agenda or not? Michelle, I'll rely on you to see if there's anyone in the room or online.
I see no hands raised online, and our guests here in the room are here to speak on regionalization.
Great. All right. Well, we'll move to that. And we'll, as I say, I'll give people an opportunity to speak on that in just a moment. Our first item, item 3A, is approval of a founding resolution on regionalization. Central Iowa Waterworks is the name that we're using currently. I thought what I'd do is give a little bit of a history, if you will, of how we got to this point, a little bit of an idea of what we expect to happen next, and then let Ted fill in all the places that I've missed, if that's fair. As most of you know, for the last 4 or 5 years, Des Moines Waterworks and communities around the region have been working in earnest to discuss how best to regionalize drinking water production. That process, if you will, started 4 or 5 years ago. There were many discussions right up until the pandemic started. And then, of course, like everything else in the world, pandemic changed things a little bit. But actually, during that time period, there were a number of discussions that happened as well to focus on how we move forward. You'll see on today's agenda, there's a document that's called an outcomes document that was produced following a number of conversations that were held between some folks at West Des Moines Waterworks, Urbandale Waterworks, and also included, I guess even before those discussions ever happened, a lot of thought that happened in those previous discussions before the pandemic. But that outcomes document gives well, it serves in a way as a guiding document, if you will, of how we would proceed in drafting an agreement to start a regionalization process. So that kind of brings us to where we are today. And the purpose of this resolution that's on your agenda today, it's not to approve the outcomes document. The outcomes document is there provided for information. It is not a binding resolution that says Des Moines Waterworks is definitely regionalizing, or and the other communities that hopefully will pass this in the coming weeks and months. Same thing. It's not a binding resolution. It's a resolution that says, and I guess the way I explain it is, it waves the flag in the air and says, pay attention, people. We're going to start talking about regionalization in earnest. We're going to be bringing forward a draft agreement that will be made public, and people can discuss and we can debate, and we'll change some things, but with the goal being that sometime in 2022, that agreement will be signed by every community in the region and will form a regional governing body that will be seated on January 1st or soon thereafter of 2023. So I say all that so that people understand that today's resolution is nothing more than a notice that we are going to begin public discussions on regionalization. And those public discussions, both at Des Moines Waterworks and in West Des Moines and Urbandale and Clive and Ankeny and all the communities we hope to join the regional government, those discussions will center around an agreement that we hope, Des Moines Waterworks hopes, will include all of those important points about governance, how communities buy into or transfer assets into the regional governance or the regional governing body, how rates will be set going forward, and those sorts of things. And so I'll stop speaking in a minute, but for me, whenever I talk about regionalization, the things that motivate me are three things. And one, we want to, and when I say we, everyone in this region should want to join a regional governance for water production, first and foremost, to protect that natural resource of water. In facing climate change and facing pollution issues and facing population growth and facing all the things that puts pressure and stresses on our most vital resource of water, we need to band together and not compete with one another for that resource. It would be unhealthy and bad for the environment and bad for ratepayers for us to compete by building redundant plants that are serving individual areas. And so that protecting of the natural resources is principle number one. Principle number two is, for every community that buys in and becomes a part of this regional governing structure for water production, that those buy-ins, if you will, whether you're transferring assets or monetarily contributing, that those buy-in are equitable, that everyone is treated fairly for the investments they've made or will make into this. And the third thing is really important to all of us, and that is spreading risk. It is not fair that any one community be burdened with potential risks down the road, whether it's risk from drought, again, risk from pollution, risk from investments, or all of those things. And so those three things, protecting the natural resource of water, making sure that we're equitably treated as communities when we buy in, and thirdly, that we fairly and equitably distribute that risk going forward, should ensure, if we do our job here, all of these communities are buying in, we do our jobs here, every community and every person will have available the water they need in the future at the most affordable price. And we do this by going at it together. So again, what we're doing today is passing a resolution that's a non-binding resolution, but really is a public notice that look in the early part of 2022 for a draft agreement to be made public, that we at Waterworks are committed to having open public dialogue about every piece of that document, to take input, to have a discussion as a board, to take to our city council, to take to the community to discuss, with the idea being that maybe by June or so, we'll have received a lot of feedback. Potential participating communities will have that feedback. And with the idea being that communities begin to sign on the dotted line in that agreement, hopefully maybe in third quarter of 2022, with the board being seated in 2023. So it's a far longer introduction than maybe was needed, but I wanted to make sure we were all kind of up to date on that same page. And I'll let Ted talk a little bit to see if there's a history. And then from a procedural standpoint, I'll get a motion in a second, hopefully, and then I'll throw it back to the community for some comments, and then end with the board having some comments. So Ted.
Graham, I think you summed it up incredibly well. I don't have a lot to add to that summation. I will offer that we've been a regional provider of water, drinking water in the metro for almost 90 years. We see the value of cooperatively providing water to the metro. We've worked very hard on this framework, very diligently to come up with a framework that we think benefits not just Des Moines and Des Moines Waterworks, but all of the communities in the metro. And we're simply here today as staff asking for affirmation from the board to move forward with the process that you described. So that's the ask from staff, and I'll return it to you, Graham, to facilitate the public comment. You're muted, Graham.
I'm muted because the dog came to interrupt me. Sorry. But yeah, so what I'm looking for is a motion to approve this resolution. And as I stated earlier, the resolution is a non-binding resolution. We can read it out loud. I find these whereas documents somewhat difficult to read in public, but I'm looking for a motion to pass the Central Iowa Waterworks founding resolution. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Great. I have a motion and a second. So as promised, I think what I'll do now is I'll move to public comment. And Michelle, I think it's best, since you're present in the room there and you've got control of the Zoom, maybe you can decide who's first here.
Okay, we have Tim Whipple with IAMU, if you'd like to step up and share your comments.
Can I take my mask off for comments?
That'd be fine.
My name is Tim Whipple, and I'm here to.
I'm sorry, may I interrupt? Graham, could I ask a point of clarification? I believe in public comment, we do have a time limit, and I wanted to be fair to all members that might have a comment. Do we have someone keeping time? And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought it'd be fair to say that before anyone begins.
We hadn't established a time limit. Michelle, do you have any idea about how many speakers we're likely to have?
Well, I have two here. I could ask that people who are attending via Zoom, if you plan to speak, would you just go ahead and raise your hand now so we can try to assess that to set an appropriate time frame? I'll give just a couple more moments for people to do that.
We're sorry to interrupt you there. We'll be right back.
And Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we did have a 5-minute time limit on public comment in some of our governing documents.
That's correct, Sue. In the board policy manual, there's a provision for 5-minute limit on comments, which is normally applied.
All right. So how many potential speakers do you have, Michelle?
I'm showing 2 hands raised in the Zoom meeting, and I have 2 in person, so 4.
Okay, so I think
Michelle,
we're
5
fine.
minutes.
I want to make sure, Michelle, that you saw that Cherie Mortiz was raising her hand on video. So I think you have 3.
You've got 3 on video.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nope, thank you.
That's fine. Well, okay, so we know
5.
what the time limits are, and we don't have too many speakers, so we don't have to be too tight on time. But please go ahead, sir. I'm sorry we disrupted you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Tim Whipple, and I am formerly legal counsel to the Iowa legislature. I drafted bills on environmental protection and economic development. I'm formerly the general counsel of the Economic Development Authority formerly the General Counsel of Mid-American Energy, and I'm currently the General Counsel for the Iowa Association of Municipal Utilities. I should state right at the outset that the Des Moines Waterworks and the Urbandale Waterworks and the West Des Moines Waterworks, all of whom are interested in regionalization, are all members of our organization. And I'm here to ask the trustees to strongly consider supporting this resolution and moving forward with the process of regionalization. I want to address generally the pros and cons, primarily the pros of an approach that involves joint action between multiple utilities. There are strong reasons to take a look at a model like that. And I don't want to speak directly to the financial analysis or some of the projections engaged in by the outside consultants. I know that there are a lot of people that are engaged in that work. So just at a high level, I would say to anyone who thinks this is, really a groundbreaking framework, I would tell you that it's not. On the electric generation and transmission part of our industry, there's been joint action for a long time. Communities working together, particularly small communities, to form entities that can make investments in expensive infrastructure projects.
Hi there.
Electric generation and
This is the one? Okay, I'll take a look at this. Where's your electric panel?
Mr.
I'm sorry.
Cater, Mr. Cater, could you mute
Garage? I
yourself?
may need it
Or
now.
Michelle, can you mute him?
My mouse is not responding. Hold on, sorry.
Oh, he's muted now.
Mr. Whipple, we're just going to keep interrupting you. I apologize.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, no.
You're fine.
Okay. We have examples of joint action on water, notably in Northwest Iowa. There's a multi-state effort called the Lewis and Clark Regional Water System that makes investments in large-scale treatment assets that they then pipe to municipal utilities in 3 different states. We have examples of joint action locally. Many people are aware of the WRA and the joint action model that shares governance and shares financial contributions to build important wastewater and stormwater treatment. And these efforts work very well. They work very well for the communities involved to share governance, to share and reduce costs for ratepayers, and they allow different communities to move together forward in concert in a way that recognizes the economic interests that they all share together. And so the question of whether it's good for the Des Moines Waterworks or the ratepayers of Des Moines, or whether it's good for West Des Moines, that's a question that those individual boards of trustees need to consider, and I know that you will. But I'm definitely here to say on behalf of municipal utilities all over the state who work together every day in joint entities with joint financing powers, that these types of models really do have a lot to offer individual utilities, to ratepayers, and to whole communities in terms of economic growth and cost savings. So for those reasons, I urge the Des Moines Waterworks Board of Trustees to strongly consider this. And if I have any remaining time, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone has. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to the next.
We appreciate you coming, and we appreciate your patience for our interruptions.
There's about a minute if there's any feedback.
That's great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we want to, we can do someone online?
Yeah.
Cherie?
Cherie?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Cherie Mortiz. I'm a Des Moines resident, and I'm also a proud member of Iowa CCI. And I'm here to ask that you postpone a vote on the proposed resolution for regionalization because of the short notice during the holiday season. This agenda item was just posted last Friday, and the public really has not had an opportunity to read or formulate questions. I realize this is technically a non-binding resolution, but I think the timing is really problematic. I've been talking to people, over the last 24 hours, and many people assume this is a done deal because to them, that's what it looks like. And people who would like to be here couldn't because of the timing so close to the holidays. The West Des Moines School Board, I still think I'm teaching sometimes. The West Des Moines Water Board was proposing a vote on this matter last week, as I'm sure you're all aware of. And they got pushed back from their constituents, and they exercised good wisdom to postpone their vote. So I'm asking you to consider the same wisdom. I think it would be helpful to walk through this proposal at public meetings with us before you vote on this preliminary proposal, so we can formulate questions along the way. From a process point of view, your approach, I'm sure, makes sense to you, but that doesn't mean that it makes sense to the general public. And it is the public trust that seems to me at this point that is kind of on the line. Let me just say that I realize that you intend to have public meetings regarding the resolution, but there's been a lot of discussion with the suburbs and you've put a ton of work into this, and I applaud you for that. And to the public, I just don't think it feels right that no formal public meetings or input has been offered until now, just before, a preliminary vote. But let me be perfectly clear. I have faith and trust in your intentions to have a good proposal for ratepayers in Des Moines. I'm not questioning your intent at all, but I think this is a misstep that can be easily remedied by delaying the vote until after the holidays, so people feel it's not a rush done deal and people have an opportunity to attend, to ask questions and add their insights and their proposals. I just kind of have this feeling that pushing forward right now will create a real challenge, particularly from those of us working on the ground with the public, to convince people that their best interests have really been baked into this current proposal. I'll just add another comment. Bill Stowe is one of the most well-respected public servants Des Moines has ever seen. And that is partially because he prioritized participation of the public. It was a priority of his that during this regionalization process, the public be informed and invited in on a regular basis. He understood that is how you build and sustain trust. You are the Board of Trustees and this is your duty. Also, I will say I genuinely look forward to future discussions that I think you're scheduling so that we can all collaborate together. This, I think these collaborations can be a great opportunity, but I think that just from kind of the people that I've talked to and that the knee-jerk reaction right now is that this is kind of a done deal. So I'm just trying to give you some information from on the ground and what hurdle you may be creating for yourself in this process. Again, thank you for your diligence and the hard work that's gone into. I want to reiterate that I have total faith in Ted Corrigan's leadership and Graham Gillette. And I'm looking forward to moving forward. At Iowa CCI, we have a saying, onward. And that's certainly the way I feel. Thank you.
Sheree, you and I have been friends and for a long time, and I appreciate you showing up here and all that you do. And you know that. I don't need to say that. But we may disagree a little bit on the process here. But the good news is this disagreement, I don't think is that big of one. The purpose of this resolution is to do as I said, and that is to put out notice that we're looking at regionalization and to discuss a little bit about the timeline of how this is going to play out. And that's important. Putting out this notice is important. Our vote today is important so that people know what's coming. And as I said in the opening comments, what's coming is in January, maybe February, an agreement will begin to be made public that will include all of the details of regionalization. And at that point, and really even before that point, we will begin having public discussions where we will go through the proposed agreement point by point. And we are interested in, we need the success of this document requires participation, public participation and input. And I promise you and everyone in this community that Des Moines Waterworks is committed to that public participation. So even if this resolution passes today, and I hear you that, and your plea that we postpone it, but even if it passes today, I don't think we'll disagree on the process. I hope we will agree that we will have these public meetings. We will talk in great substance about the details of the agreement. And over the next 6 to 9 months, I think that it's our commitment to Des Moines Waterworks to provide the public every opportunity to participate in this process. I don't know if there's anybody else that would like to respond to Cherie, other than my saying thanks for coming, and I appreciate your comments. Great. Who else we have? Michelle?
Gary Lorenz is ready to address the board.
The mayor of Ankeny for a little bit longer, I think.
For another 10 days anyway.
Not that you're counting.
Yeah. But no, thanks for this opportunity this afternoon. And I'm here to speak in favor of the founding resolution and also to encourage you to consider this and vote on this today. The reason I say that is, first of all, Graham, I think you put your 3 talking points where I agree with those and your reasoning for those. And as you said, this has gone on for 4 to 5 years. There's been countless large meetings. I was not part of the micro group at that, but I think they did very good work. But I think the reason that this founding resolution is important and important to have today is these meetings have been like we all showed up for a race, but the starter's gun never went off because there was always discussion backing up. Somebody wasn't there, somebody had this, somebody had that. And the way you described this founding resolution, I think is spot on, that this is the beginning of the formal discussion. And if communities pass this resolution, which Ankeny is prepared to do, they're committing that they're willing to see this thing through, navigate through the process, and come up with the best solutions for everyone involved. The West Des Moines Water Board meeting was mentioned earlier. I wasn't there. I didn't really watch that. I did see some of the comments about that on the news, that there was concern of what would happen to West Des Moines assets, what they built over the years. And I respect that question. But probably 2 to 3 weeks ago, myself, my city manager, and my mayor pro tem, who is also the mayor-elect in Ankeny, came down and visited with Ted, and we went on a tour of the facility down here. And I'm always amazed, I don't know exactly what you call it, but the original building on the north end of the property. The architecture that was used in that building tells me that the Waterworks was founded on pride. I mean, you don't make a building that looks the way that building does on the inside if you don't have pride in what you're establishing. I believe that was what, either the 20s or the 30s, somewhere in there. And I think that pride of Waterworks shows today in the commitment that the Board of Trustees is taking in how they're going about considering this, how they laid it out, and how now they're proposing this resolution or founding resolution. And as I said, I think it's very important that you go through with this today. Let everyone know that this is our starting point. As I said, I won't be there when this comes to a vote in Ankeny, but I can tell you that my city council is interested in this. We haven't had a lot of in-depth discussions at this point because there really hasn't been that much to have discussion about. But I said in the, as you saw in today's register, I said Ankeny is pro-regionalization, and we are. We would like to be the first non-water utility to approve that once the 3 of you do that. So those are my comments. I support what you're doing. I encourage you to do it today. And again, if there's any questions or responses you have, I'd be happy to address those.
Mayor, I appreciate you being here, and you know, you've been consistent and fair throughout this process. And it has been a long process. You and I agree on that. But your input and insistence that we keep moving forward has been steadfast throughout the process. And hopefully in 2023, when this passes and or gets approved by all these communities, you'll take pride knowing that you played a big role in making that happen. And that's good for the people of Ankeny. It's good for the people of Des Moines. It's good for this region. And you played a big part in that. And I appreciate that. Does anybody else have anything for the mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, who's next?
Okay, I noticed a Sherry Hawk that had raised hand earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Just, I am in agreement with the practicality of regionalization. It just feels a little bit like getting the cart before the horse, that we are moving forward, even if it's a non-binding, it's still a resolution to move forward into negotiations for a 2080 agreement down the line. And I just feel too, like Cherie said, it almost feels like a done deal, even though it is just a non-binding resolution. It feels like public comment should maybe be happening, not only public comment, but public education before it feels like the resolution, the negotiations, everything has already happened and we're just moving on. It just seems like it's happening. Although you've been working on this for years, I'm not saying that, and we've all been thinking about it for years, but a lot of people haven't been thinking about it for all this time and would like to have more information before any motion toward the negotiations happens. And I appreciate all the hard work that you've put into this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Hogg, I appreciate you coming in. And as I said to my friend Cherie, I understand what you're saying, but we may pass this resolution today, but it's my pledge to you, and I think I can speak for all of my fellow board members on this one, that we are committed to having those public meetings and those public education sessions that you're asking for. Ted and I had another conversation today about making sure those education sessions are different, that we create a couple of different models so that people have time to ask questions and be informed and learn about what the process is. And I think by the end of 2022, if we've done our job, the last meeting we have, no one will show up because they'll have had every opportunity to say their piece and be educated. So as I say, we may disagree on the passage of this resolution, but as I told Cherie, I really don't think that's at the end of the day is going to be the big deal. The big deal is coming, and you've got to hold our feet to the fire to make sure that we provide those opportunities for people to participate going forward.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thanks for coming and thanks for participating. Michelle, who's next?
I believe we are to Scott Cirksena.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Graham, nice to see you, and Ted and members of the board. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. On behalf of the city of Clive, certainly something that we've been involved with over the years, and something that we're very, very excited about. And I think a big part of that excitement is the process that's to come, that we've spoken about, all of us, in some form or fashion today. Certainly, I think one of the most substantial regional collaborations of our time. This is a generational opportunity here, because what it means is really protecting that water resource, Graham, as you pointed out at the beginning. and providing a stable distribution system for this region as it continues to grow. So we're excited about it. We're a cheerleader for it. We want the best process to take place. I think what you're doing today is continuing to lead, which is certainly our expectation, and I think all of us together would expect that. But then it's for what's to come as we work to refine all of the research, all of the time and effort by elected leaders, staff, technical consultants, et cetera, just to get us to this point. So I just want to thank you. I would encourage your moving forward on this step today, and I look forward to be continuing to be part of the process going forward. So thank you again for your time.
Well, you beat me to it, Mayor. I was going to tell you that I don't think you're done yet, because as you become a constituent, I think we're still going to look to you for some help. I talked to the mayor-elect yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I think your council and the new mayor will look to you for some of that historical knowledge that you have about this process. And what, the pain we've all suffered for the last 4 or 5 years as we've done this, that will be helpful. And if you can do that as a constituent and help guide this process, I think it's important that you do that. But again, like your colleague in Ankeny, I appreciate you suffering through all this time to get us to this point. But fingers crossed that in 2022 we can cross the finish line.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and happy holidays to you and your family. Appreciate it.
Yep. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. Those are all of our public speakers, Michelle?
Yes, that had raised their hands on Zoom or are in attendance.
All right. Well, let me know if somebody pops up. I will now turn it over to the board for comments. And since Diane made the effort to be in person, let's start with her.
All right. I support this. I support the resolution. I came onto the board, I think, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It all kind of runs together now. When I got here, the regionalization group was together, the large group having these discussions. So it has been some time. I know there's been a lot of articles, that there's been information put out. I also understand that because I'm the same way on other things, that people don't pay attention until this point. I know that we need to do the public education on this, and I appreciate that. But I can tell you from having been with this the last 5 years, we have continued to kick the can down the road, and we know as a board that we are reaching the point where we need to make decisions. So I support passage of the founding resolution. I've been involved in the micro group, so I got to be involved in the spending a lot of time on the details of this, and I hope that we came up with a framework that is, as Graham says, equitable to all of the communities and all of the ratepayers across the metro area. And I think throughout we said we are going to have to explain this to people. I am very pro regionalization. As Graham said, I see a lot of benefits for us. I've been involved in looking at the money piece. The money piece is important to me, but also important is assuring that we have adequate capacity and the water quality part of this. And I think that as a metro, doing that together, not competing for the resource, but cooperating around the resource is something that's important. So I see this as the first step, knowing that we really do need to explain to our constituency, as everyone does, why this makes sense for us, for all of us. but I support it as a first step in getting this thing going and not having to be more than levies.
Diane, thank you. Sue, what do you have to say?
Thank you, Graham. First of all, I do appreciate our mayors who have been so involved in this process, taking the time to be on this call. And we had so many public meetings of which numerous people were invited to come early on. I think we're finally at the point, as you said so clearly at the beginning, Graham, that we have a position as a board, and now we do want to open it up to some additional public comment. But I want to be clear that all of the information that we looked into over the last 4 years in those public meetings, that's still out on our website. I know Ted had just mentioned that in the last week to someone, that it is still there. So there's a great bit of information, going way back on what we have done, what we have researched. We now have a position that we're bringing to the public with our opinion as a board. We want to educate them on what we believe, and we want to hear what they think. So I couldn't be happier to support this. It is truly a regional effort, and I'm very pleased with the information that we will have now to share with the public. Thank you.
Graham, you're muted, but I think you offered Andrea the time.
I did. I offered Andrea a chance.
Thank you. I'm going to have to agree with my partners here on the board. This discussion has been in various settings, whether it be a microgroup setting or a study state to determine its viability for so long. And now we're at a point that, having gone through all of those different phases, we're ready to send a message to others, our suburban partners, the community, that we're ready to move forward towards a conclusion, whatever that conclusion may be, and to, as I believe Graham may have said, to committed to navigating the process to get to that conclusion. And I think that's important. And all along, I believe that we and Sue and Diane have both pointed to examples that we have commented the importance of public engagement and education. I think that we still have that as a priority as we continue to move forward. I worry that if we would have done, we were still trying to, like I said, make sure that this was a viable option, determine the viability. And I'm afraid that if we would have dug deep and done the type of public engagement, public education that we plan to do now, it would have muddied waters and kind of moved the football a little bit. And those are probably not good analogies, but it's hard to share information when it's still being, still trying to be created. And so now I think we're really at a point where we have something to share with a community and with our partners. And what this resolution is doing is saying that we're announcing that and solidifying that. So I do support the resolution, and I appreciate everyone who is able to be here virtually or in person to share their thoughts and feelings with us as well. And I look forward to continuing to work with them after tonight and in moving, like I said, to that conclusion for regionalization.
Thanks for that, Andrea. Ted, I'll give you an opportunity to make a closing comment here. I just noticed in the chat, Sheree made a comment about public outreach not just being what's on the website. I can assure you that's not our goal. I mean, we will plan not only board meetings like this where people can participate, we have lots of ideas and plan to execute different educational sessions and meetings, whether they're workshops with the city council, meetings with the Taxpayers Association, perhaps a meeting at CCI, wherever opportunities are to discuss and do this. So Sherry, we do hear you that public outreach isn't a one-way street. We're going to listen. So Ted, do you have any closing comments?
Graham, the only thing that I would add to all of the things that have been said is thank you to the board for the hundreds of hours, literally, of time that it's been put into this initiative to get us to this point. And I think in every situation like this, we get to a point where we have to make a call. I think it's important that the board make a call today. I think that will send a signal to the other communities in the metro that it's time to make a call. And we need to know who is going to be involved, because who is involved makes a big difference in terms of how this will work. So I would encourage the board's support. I'm optimistic that with that show of support, we can move this forward and we can have the kind of process that Cherie and others today have suggested is critically important. And I agree with that. But I do think it's time to make that call. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Great. And I'll just close. I know everyone that's tuned into this meeting is tired of Graham Gillette speaking, so I will get to the point as quickly as possible. But I just wanted to summarize the fact from a personal standpoint. This has been an interesting study in governance and in doing good for our communities. I have been a skeptic of regionalization. I've been a fan of regionalization. I've been both at the same time. Ted and I have argued, Bill Stowe and I argued, Sue and I have argued. We've all, we've had interesting discussions. I know that Mayor Lorenz and Mayor Circina are laughing right now because we've had those types of discussions over the years. But that's the sausage making, if you will. Those are the difficult points, and we're going to have some of that comes up once this agreement is made public and we begin to discuss that. There'll probably be some disagreements. I have my fingers crossed that the disagreements will be very small going forward, that we'll be changing words and maybe a sentence as opposed to sections or paragraphs. I really think that's where we are. And but that's the process. And thinking about Cherie and others' comments tonight, we have to go through that process and do the hard work. And I know this board is committed to the hard work. I know Ted is committed to the hard work and the rest of the staff to making this happen. 2022 is going to be a busy year, and it may be frustrating at times, but as I said at the beginning, if we do our work, we will finish 22 with a new regional governments for water, which will do those three things: protect the natural resource of water, equitably allow buy-in from all of the communities, and spread that risk throughout the community so that every community and every person has affordable, safe drinking water at their disposal for the growth we need in this area. So with that, I think we're ready for a vote, Michelle.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Moines. Yes.
And that passes. And the one thing I failed to mention, I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, but it should be said that Joel Ashbrenner has the ultimate excuse for not being here today. And I know he supports this movement and going forward, but I think that the arrival of his first child trumps everything. So thank you, everybody, for that. Thanks for everyone who came and participated. There's going to be more of this, so we look forward to seeing you again in the near future. With that, we're going to move to, and my screen just went small. I want to get to this. Oh, Michelle, you're making it hard on me here. Get to my document. There we go. So item 3B is the request authorization to execute the First Amendment to Chapter 28E, agreement between Des Moines Waterworks and the City of Norwalk for design, construction, and funding of Norwalk water utility improvements. Ted, I'll have you explain this and then I'll get a motion.
Graham, this is fairly straightforward. Actually, we entered into an agreement with Norwalk to design and construct some transmission main and a meter pit that serves them essentially from the west, from the McMullen treatment plant. That 2080 agreement was very specific about where that meter pit would be constructed, and ultimately the meter pit needed to be constructed in a different location. And so just to avoid future confusion and ensure that the agreement was correct in all its detail going forward, we have opted to amend that agreement to simply state that the meter pit is included, but not include the specific location. So we're simply asking the board to authorize approval of this amendment for that reason.
All right, so a regionalization matter, regional matter. So I'm looking for a motion to approve and authorize the chairperson to execute the First Amendment to Chapter 28E agreement between Des Moines Waterworks and the City of Norwalk for design, construction, and funding of Norwalk water utility improvements. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And second,
And a second, any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll have Michelle record the vote.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
yes.
Muns.
Yes.
Great. And item 3C is a request authorization to solicit bids for Norwalk Highway G14 meter vault and establish the date of the public as the date of the January 2022 board meeting. Ted?
This is the very meter vault we just talked about in the last item. We are prepared now to solicit bids and set the date of the public hearing for that vault. We're asking authorization from the board to do so.
All right. So I'm looking for a motion to authorize staff to solicit bids for Norwalk Highway G14 meter vault and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the January 22 board meeting and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a motion is second. And any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
Great. This moves us to item 3D, request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute change order number 11 to 2021 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 1E, Pleasantview Drive and East 17th Street. Ted, I'll have you explain this before I get a motion.
Yeah, Graham, this is one of our water main replacement projects in the city of Des Moines this year on East 17th Street. We had some real challenges there with the material that was removed from the trench and trying to replace it in the trench. Compaction could not be obtained, which means that the surface could potentially settle, the sidewalk, the driveways, the street might settle in the future. So in order to ensure that that didn't happen, we had to remove that material, dispose of it offsite, and then bring in suitable material that could be used to backfill that trench and could be compacted adequately so there wouldn't be any future settlement there along East 17th Street. So fairly significant effort required to do that along the length of the project. This is a change order in the amount of $110,850 to compensate the contractor for re-excavating, disposing, and then providing suitable material to backfill the project on East 17th Street.
So I'm seeking a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute change order number 11 to the 2021 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 1, East Pleasantview Drive and East 17th Street project in the amount of $110,850. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Well, so you guys can trade and see who's right. Any comments or question on item 3D? Hearing and seeing none, I'll have Michelle record the vote.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
All right. So this moves us to item 3E, which is request permission to issue supplemental purchase order for rehabilitation of lime sludge dewatering press equipment. One of my favorite topics, Ted.
Yeah, this is a great topic, Graham. Our lime sludge dewatering presses were installed in the early 90s. They've been in service for many, many years now and have served us well, but they were in need of fairly significant rehabilitation this year. We actually, the first purchase order that's listed on this list here, the small dollar one there at the top, we actually had the manufacturer come in and assess the presses and give us an idea of of what we needed to do to these presses. And then we issued a series of purchase orders. Many of those have come to the board for approval, but we've had some real challenges with this project. Press number 2 was a press that had actually warped. And now these are semi-truck sized pieces of equipment. There are 4 of them in the building. Press number 2 had actually warped itself. It needed significant rehabilitation. We needed to take out very large structural members, kind of weave them out through openings in the building, hired Rupert Rigging and Hauling to do that for us. And they came in and have done a nice job of that. But once they got that main structural member removed from the press, it became apparent that several other members on the press were also warped or distorted and could not be repaired. They're going to have to be replaced. So there was additional work to remove those pieces, to get them out of the building. We ordered additional parts. But Rupert, who's doing all the heavy lifting, and that's no pun intended there, the huge pieces of structural steel that are being, as I said, kind of threaded in and out of the building, has used up their labor, the time and material that they had included in their first purchase order because of all this additional work. And we still need to put the thing back together and do the minor rehab on the other 3 presses. So we've gotten a price from them to complete that work. And we're here today to ask for permission to issue an additional purchase order to Rupert in the amount of $190,000 to complete the work on press number 2, the one that was in the most distress and has been completely disassembled, and then to finish out the work on the other 3 presses, which are in not as critical of condition, but still need rehab.
Okay, so I'm seeking a motion to authorize staff to issue a supplemental purchase order for Rupert Rigging and Hauling in the amount of an additional $190,000 for providing personnel and equipment in assisting Evoqua's on-site field staff or field service workforce in rehabilitation of the existing lime sludge dewatering press equipment in the lime sludge dewatering facility. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
And a second from Sue. Any comments, questions on this item? Looks like we get to $1 million pretty quick, don't we, Ted?
We do. Fortunately, Graham, we had almost $2 million budgeted for this project. And so we're still going to be well within the budget, but yes, $1 million worth of reinvestment into the system.
Yep, that's all good. Okay, Michelle, could you record the vote, please?
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns. Yes.
All right, this is item 3F, request authorization for CEO and general manager to extend change order number 7 to the 2015-2020 lime residuals disposable agreement with Synagro. Ted, why don't you explain this?
Yeah, Graham, this is related to the last item, the press rehabilitation. Synagro is the contractor that hauls our lime sludge, and part of our contract with them is actually operating the presses, these 4 very large pieces of equipment in the watering facility. When we took press number 2 out of service, we knew that Synagro was going to have to work additional time. It takes longer to dewater the sludge with 3 presses than it does to dewater it with 4. So we worked out a change order with them to their contract, an extra $2,400 a week to cover the overtime costs that they would incur as they were operating with 3 presses. That original change order was just over $60,000. I authorized that, but because of the additional work we're going to have to do, because of the additional damage to press number 2, we need to extend that change order. We're extending the amount of time that they are going to have to do their work with only 3 presses. That extension is going to result in a total cost for that change order that's over $100,000. And so we wanted to bring that to the board for authorization because of the growth in that dollar amount.
Excellent. So I'm looking for a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to extend change order number 7, 2015 to 2020 lime residuals disposal agreement in the amount of $2,423 per week until repairs are complete. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Move. Second.
Motion in a second. Okay. And any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll have Michelle record the vote.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
All right, so item 3G is the Mid-American Energy Company electric transmission line easement. This is a public hearing. So I will open the public hearing and see if there are any comments from the public regarding the granting of an easement to Mid-American Energy across Waterworks real estate. Is there anyone here to speak on this issue, or Ted, have we heard from anyone?
Graham, we have received no comments on this item.
Great. And Michelle, no one's here to speak on this issue?
Correct.
Great. So with that, I will close the hearing, and then Ted, why don't you explain this and then I'll get a motion.
Absolutely. Graham, as we understand it, DOT is going to do some work on 63rd Street, which is kind of the western border of Waterworks Park, and Mid-Am is actually going to have to move some electrical transmission and a gas line. There are two easements we're going to consider here today. This first one is for electrical transmission line, overhead transmission line, and literally there won't be any facilities installed on our property. They will just pass over our property. So we're giving them aerial rights. There should be no real impact. It's a very small segment of our property immediately adjacent to the Raccoon River along the eastern right-of-way line of 63rd Street. And we would recommend that the board authorize this easement.
So I'm looking for a motion to authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the document granting an electric transmission line easement to Mid-American Energy Company. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second? And I have a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll have Michelle record the vote.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
All right, that moves us to item 3H, which is similar. This is a Mid-American Energy Company gas easement. It also is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing regarding the granting of a gas easement to Mid-American Energy Company across Waterworks real estate. Is there anyone here to speak on this issue? And Ted, have we heard from anybody?
We have not heard any comments.
Great. Michelle, we don't have anyone present?
Still correct.
Okay, so with that, I will close the hearing and ask Ted to explain this one.
Graham, this is actually a 16-inch gas line that will be installed across that same piece of Waterworks property, far west end of the property, outside of what is considered Waterworks Park, immediately adjacent to 63rd Street and immediately south of the Raccoon River. Not anticipated to cause any issues for us, and we would recommend that the board authorize us to grant this easement.
So I'm looking for a motion to authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the document granting a gas easement to Mid-American Energy Company. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second? And a second from Sue. Any comment or questions on item 3H? Hearing and seeing none, I'll ask Michelle to record the vote.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
All right, item 3I, this is the award, the 2022 water service line repairs contract. Ted, I'll have you explain this before I seek a motion.
Graham, every year we request proposals from plumbing contractors to perform primarily stop box repairs on private individual customer service lines. If for some reason we're unable to operate the valve that controls water flow to the home, and we need to have that repaired, we have a contract and we administer contractor who performs those repairs. The homeowner then reimburses us for those repairs, but it's a great service actually to the customer because we administer the contract, we get a good price, and we make sure the work is done right. As I said, it's a one-year agreement typically with provisions to extend for an additional 2 years if we can agree on terms of an extension with the contractor. We have used Torgerson Excavating for some time. The last time we bid this contract was 3 years ago. We did extend it for the 2 additional years as allowed. We rebid it this year. We have 2 bids, and you can see Torgerson Excavating was substantially lower than the second bid. We would recommend that the board authorize award of the contract to Torgerson.
So I'm looking for a motion to award the 2022 water service line repairs to Torgerson Excavating Incorporated in the amount of $238,340 and to authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And I've got a second. And any comments or questions on item 3I?
I have a question, and it's a question for Ted. I mean, we've worked with Torgerson Excavating in the past, so they probably have a pretty good idea of what this work entails, but the difference in bids was so significant.
Yeah, Diane, I understand your perspective there. What I can offer is that Torgerson has done this work for us for many years. They are also home serves contractor, and they do a home serve repair almost every single day, every day of the year. So they're really just set up for this kind of work. They're incredibly efficient at it, and they give us a good price. This year's price, the second low price, was significantly higher than other prices we've seen as the second bid in the past. We've seen some bids in the $400,000 range before, but this one I have to assume is a contractor who's not exactly set up for this kind of work, but was willing to do it if they could make money with their tools and equipment. So that's my perspective on why we're seeing that difference. But I don't know if, let me see, Jenny's on here. I don't know, Jenny, if you have any additional light you can shine on that kind of difference in cost between Torgerson and J&K.
No, I would say the same thing that you had said. You're kind of talking about a plumber versus a large contractor. So you're going to have different types of equipment, different tools, different ways of doing things. And as Ted said, Torgerson Excavating has done this type of work for us for many, many years. So they've got it figured out, they've got it down, and they can perform it fairly quickly and efficiently.
Anybody else on this item? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll have Michelle record the vote.
Bolton,
Yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muns.
Yes.
Great. So item 3J is our annual performance evaluation of the CEO and general manager. And it's important that we have this and that this meeting be, that we do this every year. You know, on a small board like this, it's a little different than maybe it is on other boards. We have ample time to as board members to meet with, talk to Ted and review things all throughout the year. So these discussions aren't often lengthy, but I'll open it up if board members have anything they'd like to discuss or say to Ted.
This is Diane. I'd like to say that thank you to Ted over the last year. I know that there's been some difficult thing. I hear a lot of comment from the community, and people are confident and trust you, and I appreciate the time that you've taken We reached another step on regionalization. We've been diligent on working on that and making sure that people understand it and look forward to working with you the next year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Sue or Andrea, do you have anything to add?
I would like to make my document that I prepared available to Ted. I don't know if that is done or not. I know we've kind of changed up the process. There were so many areas on that process, though, that Doug, or on the form that Doug provided to us, that I want to make sure Ted realizes. He said we were going to do a strategic plan. We did. Like Diane just mentioned, we have heard nothing but very positive things about credibility and respect and trust that our regional customers have with Ted. And there were a few other things on that, but I don't know that we would have been as far along as we were today with the action that we took if Ted had not been selected as our CEO. So I just appreciate the work that he has done and would like to make sure that Doug gives him whatever form, so that he can see the details under some other areas as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Sue. Andrea?
Yeah, thank you. Ted had the opportunity to hear some of my thoughts the other day, but I'll just share in this format that I do appreciate all of the work that Ted has done, not only with leading the projects and some of these initiatives that we had, whether it's regionalization or the strategic plan, which I would like to point out is one of the things that's most important to me, that when we were looking at who we were going to hire, that was something that was important that person was going to do, and not just do, but make it a priority to take the results and what was learned from that process and really put them to action. And I see that with Ted, not only in his in what he does, but also the people he surrounds himself with. There's been hires and initiatives and community outreach and things that I've watched be started over the past few months, over the past year, that says a lot to his leadership capabilities. And I look forward to seeing how that continues to grow going into 2022. So thank you to Ted and thank you to the rest of the board members who were able to also share their thoughts on him. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Andrea. Ted and I talk a lot, so we share a lot of information, but I want to share some things publicly, but also with the board. I mean, I have a concern, and I know Ted shares it, that continuing to improve employee relations is an important part of his job. And I know he's working on that and is committed to that, and that's important. As we went through this last year and as we look at what's ahead in 2022, one of the things that Ted and I recently discussed was it's an incumbent on him, it's incumbent on us as a board as well, that we try our very best to anticipate how our actions are going to be viewed and, more importantly, impact those people we serve and our potential partners in regionalization. And so we may be right? I mean, we've spent a lot of time and we think we have all the answers, and maybe we are right, but what we say and how we say it is important. I heard the comments at the beginning of our meeting today about making sure we do our level best to educate and allow participation in regionalization. And that starts with thinking about how we word things, how we say things, and how we present things. And I know Ted and I have had this discussion. I mean, that's something that none of us are experts at. And we're likely to make mistakes. And one of the things I've appreciated from Ted over the last year is that when we disagreed or there was an issue, Ted was always willing to listen and to take advice. I think to Andrea's point about strategic planning, that alone shows that that Ted was willing to take advice and to learn. I told him the other day that a lot of people that would have come into his position after decades of service in an organization probably would have dismissed the need for a strategic plan because they had all the answers. They'd been there all that time. And Ted did the opposite. Ted did the opposite and said, I need to hear from other people and we need to work together to develop our plan going forward. And so that's a credit to him. So there's a lot of work to be done. And as I say, I share Ted's concerns about improving employee relations, continuing to work on how we communicate internally and externally, and just working together as a board and a CEO and a staff to do those things. And Ted, I'll let you make some comments, but before I do, just one thing for the board to consider. I mean, this annual evaluation will come up again a year from now, which seems like a very long time. But as we go through the process, if there are any concerns, opportunities, or things that the board wants to discuss about the CEO's performance or anything like that, we can have a discussion like this at any time. And so all you need to do is ask, and we will make that happen. Ted, what do you have to?
Graham, I just have a couple of thoughts. One is I've always been proud to be an employee of Des Moines Waterworks, continue to be proud. It's an honor and a privilege to serve as the CEO. I said that when I got hired, and it's still the case. There's a lot to do, but I come to work every day looking forward to the challenges, and I look forward to the next year. So thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And there are a lot of challenges going forward, aren't there, Ted?
Indeed.
But we are up to the task, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So with that being said, we'll move into section 4, board and committee reports. Let's see here. We had, was there a finance and audit committee meeting?
Graham, that was converted to the special meeting on security.
Okay. Do we need to update on that, or I don't think we do really. There's not much to add when that comes to that. So planning committee, do you want to provide that update?
Graham, we covered legislative priorities, and we can have Jen touch on those really briefly in her external affairs comments, if that's appropriate.
Yeah, we'll leave that to that. Okay. Customer Relations Committee, we've talked about that a lot today. That was item number 1. I have nothing new to report on Bill Stowe, the Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden. You've probably seen in the paper that the sculpture honoring Tom Urban is spectacular, and it's going to be a great addition to that park. So this spring, you'll want to get out and see that. And Andrea, what do you have from the Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation Board? Anything?
You can see their information in the board packet. They're continuing to close in on their fundraising goals. And most recently, they participated in their strategic planning, their work planning section for next year. So I'm sure there's more to come as the year starts.
Great. And I'm sure everyone saw, or most people saw, the article in the paper about the city's proposed action to make up the shortfall for the connector between the park and Gray's Lake. I would imagine, Andrea, that there'll be an update on that probably in the first quarter of next year. Is that a fair assumption?
I think that's a fair assumption, and one that we can also make sure we ask for.
Yeah, and we don't have to do that right now. Let's talk a little bit about that process and when it's appropriate for our board to ask for something more detailed.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right. The 2022 external boards and committee assignments. This is one of these policy manual things that I think we could take either way. We generally assign external board and committee assignments when the executive, when the president and vice president elections are held. And it's kind of my understanding that everybody will serve in those positions for the 2 years, the same as the president and vice president terms. So I listed it as a an informational item so that everyone will probably will remain in the positions they have now. However, if you're seeking a change, if you want to do something different, let me know and we can make those adjustments if that's fair to everybody. But it doesn't require a vote. So with that, we'll turn it over to Jen and External Affairs.
Thanks, Graham. I would just touch briefly on our legislative priorities as you asked about earlier. So we had the opportunity to introduce our state government affairs team from Advocacy Strategies to the committee, as well as our new federal government relations representation, the Woodbury Associates team. They've been working really hard. We've developed a great working relationship with them already. So I would just say that our federal legislative priorities in summary deal with some of our most important issues, which can be worked on at the national level, which include harmful algal blooms, PFAS, the federal support for infrastructure funding, and then maximizing our membership benefits and making allies and using some of those relationships at the national level. So that's been interesting to develop as well. In terms of state legislative priorities, we will be doing focusing on 3 proactive things and then being defensive on any measures that we need to be. But proactively, we want to work on increased accountability, transparency, and targeted spending for the SF 512 water quality money that our state has authorized. Creating public-private partnerships to protect source water. We've got some interesting partnerships going there. We'd like to continue to have our state government support the funding and frameworks for those. And then allowing drainage district boards to make local level decisions about water quality. We had some state legislators out and we talked with them a little bit about the possibility of providing educational materials about conservation practices and source water protection to drainage districts. And so that's kind of an interesting proposition that we will try and explore this legislative session. And then I would just wrap up with 2 updates on issues that you've likely been hearing about in the news recently. So first of all, the National Defense Authorization Act was passed through Congress last week. It will be signed into law by the president soon. I don't have a date exactly. There was a provision within the act pertaining to PFAS. So the legislation includes a substantial increase in remediation funding to address PFAS contamination, which is good for us. I'm also happy to report that of the 300+ sites across the country affected by this piece of legislation that struggle with PFAS issues, there were, I believe, 55 sites were specifically identified as priority sites that will require a 60-day investigation and report, and Iowa is one of them. And so I do just want to give a special thanks to Senator Ernst and her staff. She serves on the Senate Armed Forces Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities, and she supported this final version of the NDAA. She and her staff, as you recall, were out for a tour recently, and we were able to talk with her about our PFAS concerns. So it was nice that she was able to work on that piece. Also, a note of appreciation to Congresswoman Cindy Exedy. We spoke with her staff today, and she has worked on the PFAS issues for us during the 2021 earlier Congress, but some pieces of her bill sort of mirrored these pieces of this legislation. So our congressional delegation definitely has heard, excuse me, our concerns about PFAS. The second thing, the final thing, is that our team met with Patrick Tomka, who is Governor Reynolds' senior tax and economic policy advisor last week. So he spent quite a bit of time with us and helped us understand a couple of things. First of all, the $100 million in American Rescue Plan Act money that is being made available by the state. So this was an announcement by the governor about 10 days ago. So we think that there might be an opportunity in one way or another for us to apply for some of that funding. The other thing that Mr. Tomka helped us understand was more about the upcoming Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, IIJA money. So those guidelines have yet to be released. We've been talking with our congressional delegation to be sure that they understand we're an independent utility. So we want them to understand that whatever funding mechanisms are in place, we are hoping that we, of course, are eligible for those. Our staff has also met with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources and the Iowa Finance Authority, who have been very helpful in giving us information. I believe that's the conclusion of my updates. And does anyone have any questions for me?
Anyone have questions for Jen? Excellent work. We're moving forward, right, Jen?
That's right. Thank you.
Ted, I'll turn it over to you.
Graham, a couple of quick things. First of all, I want to give a year-end update on our utility goals for this year. We had 4 goals, as you will recall. The first related to treatment plant expansion and moving that process forward. It was a 2-pronged goal. Initially, we wanted to have an update to the long-range plan completed in the first quarter, and we did get that accomplished. That update confirmed that we needed to be moving forward at pace to prepare for expansion of capacity. And so the second prong of that goal was to do some analysis and preliminary engineering to get costs for the desired expansion. We ended up having to do preliminary engineering on 2 options, which took a little longer. We had hoped to have that done by the 3rd quarter. It's on pace to be done in late January or early February, so a little bit behind schedule and shown with a status of not on track here because of that slight delay. But I think the spirit and intent of that is intact in terms of treatment plant expansion. The second goal was response plan to the lead and copper rule revisions. We had laid out a number of tasks that we intended to complete. We made some progress there, but unfortunately the rule has not come out yet. The Biden administration kind of pulled that rule back and has indicated they're going to do some revisions and editing and whatnot. And so we're kind of in a holding pattern there, still waiting to see what the exact requirements will be, but we will be in position to move forward on those pretty quickly when the time comes. Our third goal was completing a 5-year organizational strategic plan. We've talked a little bit about that through the process here today. That plan is complete, and now we are working hard already on implementation, getting that rolled out and communicated to employees so that everyone knows where we ended up there. And then our 4th goal is related to safety. Had a couple of prongs to that goal. As always, we're trying to limit the number of recordable injuries that we have. We don't want to have any of our employees get hurt if possible. Our goal is always to stay below 1/2 of the industry average for a utility our size. The industry average would be 12. Our goal is no more than 6. And right now, as we stand here today, 10 days before the end of the year, we have had 4 recordable injuries. And I want to highlight that that is an amazing accomplishment by our staff, a real testament to the work of our Central Safety Committee, our union leadership, our employees, highlighting safety on a day in and day out basis and just ensuring that folks don't get hurt here at work. So that's an amazing accomplishment. The other part of that goal was to have 100 near misses submitted so that issues around the utility could be addressed, and we did exceed that goal. At this point, we've had 117 near misses submitted. Many of those have been addressed. We have some that still need to be addressed, but great performance by the safety team. Kyle Danley is the lead there, along with Dee Clark on the union side, and they're doing a great job maintaining safety as a priority at the utility. The other thing I would comment on is the vaccine and testing mandate. You're probably all aware that the stay on that mandate has been lifted. That's not to say that there won't be more litigation and more delays, but currently, as we understand it, we're expected to have a program in place by the 10th of January, and that we're expected to have implemented it by the 10th of February. We do have a program that's been prepared. There's still a lot of moving pieces here. We're hearing that there's potential for funding for the testing requirements that insurance companies cover the testing. We are still taking the perspective that we will have a mandatory testing program as opposed to a mandatory vaccination program, and you can be exempted from the testing if you're vaccinated. We're still working to understand exactly how that's going to work, and we will watch, but the bottom line is when the rules come out, we'll follow the rules, and we'll work with our folks to get that implemented to the best of our ability. So Graham, I think I'll stop there and see if there are any questions on any of that.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Ted?
This is Diane. I don't have a question, but I just want to congratulate both you and the staff on exceeding the safety goal. As somebody who has worked for a utility, I know that the only way that that works is that it keeps safety top of mind. And that's something that is not as easily done as it seems it might be. So just great work by everybody to limit those accidents and those other things that cause injuries. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. As I said, it's a real testament to the staff and their focus, union leadership and their focus, and central safety and their focus. So appreciate those comments.
Anybody else? I will direct your attention to the schedule for January and February. As you all know, we're going to hit 2022 off running and running hard. That January 4th special board meeting will be largely a closed meeting where we'll begin discussing the 28E agreement that Rick Mom and his team have been working on. What the board should understand is that Ted will not be with us at that meeting. He'll be on leave that week. And I think this is fine. I mean, I think from a procedural standpoint, in large part, the board is going to be on receive. Rick and John and others will kind of present to us their process and the materials that they're working on. I would expect that if the board has questions and wants Ted's involvement, most of that's going to come up in the January 11th meeting anyway. And so look for that January 4th meeting to be the board to be largely on receive, going through the first parts of the 28E. I imagine we'll all think about it for that week and come back with many questions for Rick, John, and Ted on the 11th as we go through the second phase. And we'll see where we are after those two meetings on what our timing is for and next steps. But that leads us into the January 25th board meeting. So there aren't committee meetings, but that the January 4th and January 11th meeting will be weighty. So I know you know that, but I'm stating the obvious. And lastly, I will say that in a previous term as chair, I hosted a holiday function at our house. I should say my wife and I did. She did most of the work. And I missed doing that this year. Fingers crossed that a year from now, we won't be in a pandemic. Maybe regionalization will have passed. And if those things happen, the Gillettes will be looking forward to hosting you here next year. It is a pleasure to serve as chair of this board, and I appreciate your trust and your camaraderie as board members and staff members and everyone else that's on this call. We've got a lot of work to do, and I look forward to doing it with you. So with that, a motion to adjourn. I think we've got one in a second, so I'll adjourn the meeting. But thanks, everybody, and happy holidays, happy New Year.
Thank you.